Hello, Internet. Welcome once again to Quiz and Hers, the trivia podcast where we test each other's knowledge and the strength of our relationship in a 10-week battle for sweet, sweet bragging rights. My name is Justin, and I am here with my competitor, my co-host, and my cohabitator, my fiancée, Hallie.
Hello.
For those of you who are new to the game, the way that it works is each week one of us writes 6 questions to ask the other person, coming from our 6 categories, which are arts and literature, sounds and screen, science, sports and games, times and places, and everything else. Currently, Hallie is leading 3 correct answers to 2 games into the second season.
Woot woot.
And whoever has the most correct answers at the end of 10 games will be declared the Quiz and Hers champion. Each game is also linked together by some central unifying theme, and after each question, the Quizmaster will have a discussion prepared so that we can all learn a bit more about whatever the Quizmaster happens to be talking about in that question.
Yep.
Ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So today's game is called Crazy 88s.
Okay.
Because every question will have to do with an event that occurred in a year ending in 88.
Oh, damn. I thought it was going to be about old people. You got my hopes up. That's a great... Oh, well, I'll just store that away.
The theme about old people?
Yes.
Yeah, that
would
works.
be fun.
That would work.
I love old people.
I know you do.
Okay.
All right. So, no, this is not a game about old people. It's a game about years ending in 88.
You know I'm not great with my years.
Well, none of the answers are years.
Okay, that's a
the
blip.
years will be in the question.
Okay.
So, yeah, actually, so the original idea for this was I was going to do things that happened in 1988, which I chose because there was a question that I wanted to ask about something that happened in that year.
Because it's your birth year.
It is also my birth year.
That's not why you thought of it?
No, there was a question I wanted to ask, and it's still in here. We'll get to it. But I thought that it was perhaps a tad bit narcissistic to do an entire game about one's birth year. Not to mention, as I was doing the research, I couldn't find questions for all 6 categories from 1988. So I broadened the topic out to any year ending in 88 in the Gregorian calendar.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Question 1. Times and places. Pope Gregory VIII called for the Third Crusade in 1187, and it didn't actually get underway until 1189. So Europeans spent 1188 preparing for war. These preparations included Henry II of England raising funds to finance his army by levying a land tax, which was appropriately named for what Muslim leader who founded the Ayyubid dynasty and had recently captured Jerusalem, prompting Gregory's call for the crusade in the first place.
It's the longest question I've ever heard. For a minute, I thought we were in the middle of a discussion. Then I'm like, wait a minute, this is still the question.
This is the question.
That's very long. I'm trying to put all of this together. So I'm going to do a Justin here and repeat little pieces of the question to help myself. Yep. So the question you're asking is, who is the Muslim leader that in 1188 did something? You know, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, this is one of the ones you're not supposed to get.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna get it.
Okay.
I feel like I need to guess. Muslim leader.
I mean, there are only a few Muslim leaders that ever come up, so if you guess one of them, you have like a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chance of getting it right.
I can't think of anybody from like before like the 20th century. I don't know. Just tell me.
You're not gonna guess?
No, I don't know.
Okay. It's Saladin.
Oh.
Yep.
I was thinking something that started with an S, and then I couldn't. I was like Sinbad, and then I was like...
That's a character.
And then I was like Scheherazade.
Also a character.
Because we were just talking about
Arabian
that.
Nights. Yep.
I know, but then I was like, I feel like it sounds like that. Never mind.
Yeah, so when it comes to Muslim leaders other than Muhammad, right? It's usually either Saladin, Suleiman the Magnificent, or like...
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Maybe, or like one of the early caliphs.
Was it Emperor Saladin?
No.
Oh.
His title was not emperor. It was sultan.
Oh.
An-Nasir Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, usually called Saladin in the West, was a Sunni Muslim of Kurdish descent. He founded the Ayyubid dynasty when he abolished the Fatimid Caliphate in 1171, and was crowned as the first Sultan of Egypt and Syria in 1174. At that time, Jerusalem was controlled by European crusaders, and was known as the Kingdom of Jerusalem. When Reynaud of Chatillon, or Chatillon maybe, the lord of Ultra-Jordan, a crusader state east of the Jordan River, raided a Muslim caravan and imprisoned its travelers, Saladin demanded their release, but Reynaud refused. This was all the provocation that the Sultan needed, and in 1187 he began his reconquest of the Holy Land, besieging and conquering Tiberias, Acre, and Jerusalem by the end of the year. Pope Urban III is said to have collapsed and died upon hearing of the Muslim victory. Gregory VIII was elected... Well, that's not funny. Don't laugh about a man dying. Jeez.
But, he was just so shocked.
Yeah.
Was it shocking?
Well, it was... I think everyone believes that they have the right to Jerusalem, and the Crusaders certainly believed that. Yeah. So to hear that God would allow the Muslims to retake Jerusalem was just probably shocking. Him. Yeah, evidently. Well, that's what they say anyway.
Okay, sorry. I take it back. It's not funny. It's just ridiculous.
Gregory VIII was elected as the new pope the next day, and quickly issued the Audita Tremendi, a papal bull calling for the Third Crusade.
What's a papal bull?
It's like a proclamation from the pope.
Why is it called the bull?
I don't know.
Is it called the bull anywhere else but in the papacy?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Frederick I Barbarossa, the Holy Roman Emperor, was the first European leader to take up the cross and depart for the Holy Land, but his horse slipped while crossing the Salef River, dashing him against the rocks. He drowned, and most of his army returned home to Germany.
How come that's allowed to be funny?
Because it's a horse slipping. I just think that's funny. I don't know. Meanwhile, Henry II of England and Philip II of France, who had been at war with each other, promptly made peace, and levied Saladin tithes on their peoples to finance the war to retake Jerusalem. That's the tax that I mentioned in the question.
Mm-hmm.
The peace didn't last long, though, as Philip and Henry's son Richard launched a surprise attack in 1189, defeating Henry, who died shortly after. Richard inherited the throne, becoming Richard I of England, though he may have already been known by his famous sobriquet Lionheart by that time.
I was thinking it was him.
That's Richard the Lionheart, yep.
Okay.
Along with Leopold V of Austria, Henry and Philip laid siege to Acre on June 8, 1191, and captured the city on July 12th. The three of them argued over who should keep the booty, and Richard and Philip were already on pretty bad terms because Richard had broken his longtime betrothal to Philip's half-sister Alice and married Berengaria of Navarre. Fed up with Richard, Philip and Leopold returned to Europe. Richard exchanged...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was she Muslim?
No.
Was she...
Navarre is in France, I believe. Spain? Navarre is in Europe.
Did you just say Japan?
Spain.
Oh. I was like, that's not in Europe.
No.
Okay.
Where was I? Right. Philip and Leopold returned to Europe, but Richard was still in the Holy Land. Richard exchanged gifts with Saladin, and it seemed that peace might be at hand, until Richard decided that Saladin was taking too long and casually beheaded 2,700 Muslim prisoners in full view of Saladin's army.
Holy crap.
Yeah. After that, it was on. Richard captured Jaffa and advanced within sight of Jerusalem, but didn't have the numbers to conquer it. In July 1192, Saladin retook Jaffa, but lost control of his army, who were frenzied with rage over the massacre at Acre. Richard counterattacked from the sea and drove the Muslim forces from the city. Facing a stalemate, the two proud monarchs concluded a peace treaty under which Jerusalem remained under Muslim control, but unarmed Christian traders and pilgrims were permitted to visit the city unmolested. Like any good compromise, this treaty left both sides disappointed. The Christians were upset that Richard had not retaken Jerusalem outright, and the Muslims were frustrated that the Crusaders had wiped away most of Saladin's conquests and strengthened their positions along the coast. Nonetheless, trade between the Christian and Muslim worlds flourished. For a while, at least. 6 more crusades were launched over the next century or so, and as we all know, religiously motivated violence continues in that part of the world today.
Yep.
Not really a happy ending there, unfortunately.
Nope.
Anyway, question 2. Everything else. Named for the man who founded it in 1688, what British insurance giant originally insured against the loss of life and cargo at sea, and now writes a variety of policies, including unusual ones insuring Troy Polamalu's hair and Keith Richards' fingers?
Well, I only know one British insurance company.
Okay.
Lloyd's of London.
Correct.
Yay!
It's not actually a company, though. I'm going to talk about that. It's unique in that way. But yes, Lloyd's of London is the correct answer.
Woo!
Nice.
Woo. Success. Was I supposed to get that one?
That was a coin flip one. So we've talked about this before, how we usually each try to write...
Have we talked about this on...
We've talked about it on air, yeah. Okay. Sometime last season. About how we usually try to write 2 questions we think the other person will get, 2 we think they won't get, and 2 that we think it's kind of a coin flip. This was one of the coin flip ones.
Nice.
But yeah. Yep, so, Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's is unique in the insurance industry because it isn't one company, but rather a market in which people and corporations come together to pool risk associated with underwriting insurance policies. This is not by any stretch my area of expertise, but my understanding is that Lloyd's members essentially own stakes in policies and share the risk associated with each policy across many members, collectively called a syndicate. If a claim is paid out on a policy, say if Keith Richards loses a finger in some unfortunate accident while shooting a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the members of the syndicate that own the policy must pay out the claim. But if no claim is filed, they collect the premiums that Richard pays them. So the goal of a syndicate, like a typical insurance company, is to own low-risk policies while avoiding higher-risk policies. What's unique about Lloyd's is that one policy can be underwritten by multiple insurance companies or individuals, spreading the risk around.
So it's like the stock market, but insurance?
Sort of, yeah.
Oh.
Except it's not like an open exchange. I don't think like once you own a piece of a policy, you can't then sell it off to someone else. So it's not like owning stock, but it's, you pool together a bunch of companies or individuals as a syndicate and share the risk around instead of one company or one person taking on all the risk inherent in the policy.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sort of.
Okay. I found some conflicting information about when Lloyd's was founded, but they say 1688 on their website, so that's good enough for me.
Okay.
What everyone agrees on is where the marketplace originated, in a London coffee house owned by Edward Lloyd. Sailors, merchants, and businessmen would gather there, and Lloyd provided reliable news about what was happening out on the high seas. This place soon became the center of maritime insurance. If you owned a ship and wanted to insure against loss at sea, that was where you went to find a rich businessman you could pay to take on the risk. These wealthy individual members are traditionally called names, with a capital N, though they now constitute a very small percentage of the overall Lloyd's market, which is mostly corporate members now. Anyway, Lloyd's absolutely dominated the maritime insurance market for 2 centuries. In 1871, Parliament passed the first Lloyd's Act, which incorporated the Society of Lloyd's, which is essentially the governing body of the marketplace, and put them on sounder financial footing than ever before, and they soon expanded their presence beyond British maritime insurance to America and the rest of the world, and to other kinds of insurance, under the leadership of the innovative underwriter Cuthbert Heath. Heath cemented Lloyd's reputation when the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906 flattened 80% of the city. Heath had gotten Lloyd's into earthquake insurance, and despite the cost, he ordered that every policy be paid in full, and even covered the damage caused not just by the quake itself, but also the subsequent fires.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a big part of why Lloyd's has the reputation it has today of being an just incredibly reliable insurance.
I see.
Not company, but market, yeah.
So can anyone just, get on there?
No.
Do you know which companies are, involved?
Most of the major insurance companies have a presence there, I think.
American ones, too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Another Lloyd's Act in 1911 laid out the Society's objectives, including promoting its members' interests and disseminating information. Shortly after, in 1912, they paid out a policy on the Titanic, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
But, like any big business, they have seen some controversy. In 1982, another Lloyd's Act was passed to reduce conflicts of interest, and several underwriters were quickly disciplined for skimming money. Many underwriters in the 1990s alleged that they had been recruited as new names to dilute impending losses that the older names knew were coming. Many refused to pay, and Lloyd's had to restructure. They've also been criticized for insuring American gun shows and gun owners against criminal and civil litigation.
Oh, maybe the reason that I knew that I had just seen Lloyd's was when I was doing my research on the gun control stuff.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because I feel like I just read something about it.
Yeah, that was probably it then.
Yeah.
Still, most businesses can't seem to go a week without a major scandal, so it's impressive that Lloyd's has only had a handful in 330 years.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, Lloyd's is also known for insuring just about anything. Here's a few of my favorite Lloyd's policies to close.
Okay.
Troy Polamalu's hair is insured for $1 million. Cutty Sark Whiskey once offered a £1 million reward to anyone who could capture the Loch Ness Monster alive and guard it against the payout with a Lloyd's policy.
Amazing.
And, this is my favorite, Michael Flatley of Riverdance fame, his legs were insured for $47 million while he was on tour.
Oh my god.
But, to minimize the risk, there was a stipulation in the policy that he was not allowed to dance except when performing on stage.
Wait, I bet Kim Kardashian's butt is insured through Lloyd's of London.
Probably, yeah. I didn't see that one as I was reading, but that's very probably true.
Because I'm pretty sure she did insure it.
Then it was probably through Lloyd's. It's like
probably
one of the only companies that would do that, yeah.
It's funny.
Alright, so you are 1 for 2 so far. Ready?
Ready.
Question 3. Arts and literature. What Spanish artist, often called the last of the old masters, finished the painting Manuel Osorio Manrique de Zuniga, often referred to as Red Boy, in 1788, over 3 decades before his iconic black paintings? The listeners can't see that face you're making.
Sorry. Deep in thought. I just forgot his name. Give me like 2 seconds.
Yep.
Hold on.
Holding.
Velasquez?
Is that your answer?
Yeah.
No. He was earlier.
Damn. Because I was thinking it's like before Picasso and before Moreau, and I'm like, who's before that? And then I thought of Velasquez.
You went back a little too far.
Couldn't think. Well, who is it?
Francisco Goya.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. I figured the black paintings would... Like, if I just asked you about Red Boy, that would be too hard. But if I added the black paintings, then it was a fair question.
I don't know the black paintings.
Really?
Yeah.
You've probably seen at least some of them. You've probably seen Saturn Devouring His Son, if nothing else.
Maybe if I saw it, but I don't know
You'd
if I
recognize it. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Another biography of an artist.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of these.
Yep.
Goya, whose full name was Francisco José de Goya y Lucientes, was the most important Spanish painter of the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and today, the Spanish National Art Museum, the Prado, houses more works by Goya than any other artist.
Wow.
But he was not born into prominence. His family was lower middle class, and we don't know a ton about his early life. He was born on March 30th, 1746, and it's clear that he had some formal education, perhaps at a free school in Zaragoza where he grew up. He began studying painting at age 14, and after a 4-year apprenticeship, he moved to Madrid and applied to art school. He was rejected twice, and decided to travel to Rome to study the works of classical antiquity. He returned to Zaragoza in 1771 after 5 years in the Eternal City, and began building a reputation as a talented artist in the Rococo style. He received some royal commissions, but they weren't terribly prestigious, engraving copies of works by old masters and painting cartoons for tapestries. Cartoons, not in the modern sense of the term, of course, but rather paintings that essentially served as drafts for the weavers who would eventually produce the tapestries.
Oh, so he would sort of do a rough sketch on the tapestry, and then
he would paint a full-scale draft of the tapestry.
And they would sew right over that.
No, I think they used it as a guide when they made the tapestry.
Like
I don't
needle pointing.
But I don't think they sewed right onto the cartoon. I think
okay.
it was like the draft that they followed.
Okay.
For the colors and stuff.
Got it.
Yeah. So at this point, Goya was making a living as an artist, but he wasn't exactly on pace to become one of the most celebrated in history. His fortunes changed in 1783 when King Charles III's chief minister, José Moñino, first Count of Floridablanca, commissioned him to paint his portrait. This brought Goya into the royal court, and he spent the 1780s painting various notables, including the royal family and other noble families. The painting I mentioned in the question, please don't make me say it again, was of the Count of Altamira's youngest son, Manuel, who was 4 when the painting was completed, though tragically he died 4 years later. Too bad, he was a cute kid.
Aww.
Goya was appointed first court painter in 1790, making him the most prominent and best paid painter in Spain, but this didn't stop him from subtly satirizing the nobility in his work. For instance, in his Charles IV of Spain and his family, the Queen, Luisa, is placed at the center of the work, obliquely pointing out that she held the real power.
Ah.
Look, you couldn't just come out and shit-talk the royals back then. That was about the best you could do.
This is like the New Yorker cartoons of the...
Yeah, right, exactly.
Of the 1700s.
Yeah, exactly.
How do they know? Like, did he say that? Or did some art historian decide this?
So that's the standard interpretation among art historians.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who knows, really?
Well,
maybe he just thought she was hot.
Maybe, although as you'll see, a lot of his later works are also kind of satirical, okay. So it would be consistent with the development of his artistic style if that were on purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometime in 1792 or 1793, an illness left Goya deaf. We're not really sure what it was, but it might have been viral encephalitis or a series of mini-strokes. He continued painting commissions, but his side projects became more bleakly satirical. In 1799, he published the Caprichos, 80 etchings criticizing what he saw as, quote, the foibles and follies to be found in any civilized society, end quote. Things got even darker for him when Napoleon invaded Spain in 1808, the start of the so-called Peninsular War. He painted the 2nd of May, 1808, and the 3rd of May, 1808, depicting the resistance of the Spanish people to French conquest and the horrors of warfare. If you remember anything from this discussion, remember the black paintings and the 2nd of May, 1808, and the 3rd of May, 1808. They come up all the time.
Okay. I'm going to have to look them up so I can visualize it.
Yeah, they're really good. He became reclusive and completed the black paintings, most famously Saturn devouring his son, between 1819 and 1823. They were clearly never intended for exhibition. He painted them directly on the walls of his house, and they were only taken down and transferred to canvas supports 50 years later.
Did you notice that almost every artist we talk about becomes reclusive?
Yes.
I think it's just part of their personality as an artist. Like, to be a good artist, you also have to be a recluse.
Yeah, maybe.
It's sad.
The black paintings reflect Goya's fear of going mad and the utterly pessimistic view of humanity he had developed during and after the war. After a stroke partially paralyzed him and his eyesight began to fail, he mercifully died on April 16, 1828, at the age of 82. He is remembered today as one of the most innovative, most influential, and most tortured artists of his age. All right.
Okay.
Question 4. Now this one you should definitely get.
Uh-oh, no pressure.
In 1888, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov composed and conducted the premiere of what symphonic suite inspired by the 1001 Nights?
Scheherazade.
Is that your answer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay! Wow, good. Weird.
Yeah. I had written this...
It's always on my mind.
I had already written this question and this discussion well before we were talking about the 1001 Nights the other night.
But just for the listeners, I do bring this up a lot because I have trouble learning about it. So it's just like one of those things that I can never remember no matter how many times I hear about it. So this will help me. Thank you. Well, but at least I got it. So at least I know that much.
I'm not going to talk about the 1001 Nights actually, because it sounds in screen. So I'm going to talk about Rimsky-Korsakov and his buddies.
Oh, actually. Okay. All right. Well, I'll just have to.
I have one paragraph about Scheherazade.
Okay.
Scheherazade is a 4-movement symphonic poem. It's obviously named for the narrator and protagonist of the 1001 Nights, and it is considered to be the most popular of Rimsky-Korsakov's works. It's good. What else is there to say, really? Nothing. Nothing, that's what.
Okay.
So, I'm going to talk about Rimsky-Korsakov and 4 of his buddies, who are collectively referred to as the Mighty Handful, or sometimes simply the 5. The Mighty Handful were a loose circle of composers centered around Mily Balakirev, and also included Cesar Cui, Modest Mussorgsky, and Alexander Borodin. All of them lived in St. Petersburg, which was the capital of Russia at the time, and they were quite young when they came together in 1862. Borodin was the oldest at 28, and Rimsky-Korsakov was the baby of the group at just 18. Notably, Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky was active at the same time, but he was not affiliated with the group. That's a mistake that trivia novices often make.
Was he friends? Did he not know them, or he wasn't?
I mean,
he just wasn't friends with them.
They were almost certainly familiar with each other, but actually they were kind of rivals in their styles, which I'll talk about in a second. Tchaikovsky was born into privilege and had connections in the Tsar's court, but the mighty handful, that's getting annoying, I'm just going to call them the five. Okay. The five came from minor nobility in the provinces, not the powerful court nobles of the capital. They weren't peasants or anything. I mean, hell, serfdom wasn't even abolished in Russia until 1861. But they weren't just handed their status either. Most of them had to have regular jobs in addition to their musical work. Balakirev opposed the kind of formal academic training that Tchaikovsky had had. He believed that a composer should learn by creating. Hence, unlike Tchaikovsky and other elite Russian composers of the era, the five were all self-trained amateurs. They differentiated themselves by searching for a more authentically Russian style of music that wasn't influenced by German classical music. Mm-hmm. This meant that they didn't rely on the 7-note major and minor scales that we're most familiar with, but rather on the more obscure scales that were prominent in Russian folk music, most notably the whole tone scale, which is 6 notes separated by whole steps, the pentatonic scale, which obviously consists of 5 notes, and the so-called octatonic or diminished scale, which is 8 notes alternating between whole and half steps. That last one, the octatonic scale, is so indelibly associated with Rimsky-Korsakov that it is sometimes just called the Rimsky-Korsakov scale or Korsakovian scale.
Wow. So, I feel like we should give everyone an example because it's easy to do that on a podcast.
What do you mean?
Well, like, we can play it for them.
Okay.
Like, you can play, like, a little clip of Scheherazade, where you can play this scale. I don't know. It's a good medium for doing this.
It is. I'm not quite sure how the copyright on any of that works.
Oh, good point. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Scheherazade's on YouTube. You can find it.
All right.
It's fine.
I'll look it up after.
Yeah, it's good. So, if you ever get a trivia question about the octatonic scale, the answer is Rimsky-Korsakov. They also shared a fascination with the Far East, to the point that Asian influences are now considered a trope of quote-unquote Russian music. The five ruled the Russian classical music scene for the next few decades.
What do you mean? What do you mean considered a trope?
Like, what you think of now as sounding like Russian classical music is generally very heavily influenced by, like, Asian traditional music as well as Russian traditional music.
That's interesting. I feel like what I think of as Russian traditional music is just, like, klezmer.
Well, that's part of the influence around it, sure.
Oh, okay.
The five ruled the Russian classical music scene for the next few decades and influenced or taught almost every major Russian composer of the next generation, including Prokofiev, Stravinsky, and Shostakovich.
I love them.
Yeah, they're all fantastic. All three of those are amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, to wrap up, I'm going to rapid fire the most famous and important works by each of them. These are the ones to remember for trivia purposes.
Okay.
Balakirev wrote 2 overtures on Russian themes, the solo piano fantasy Islami, and the orchestral poem Tamara, which influenced Scheherazade. Cui was not as nationalistic as his pals, and mostly wrote works for solo piano, small chamber groups, and songs for children. Mussorgsky is known for the Russian historic opera Boris Godunov, the tone poem Night on Bald Mountain, and the piano suite Pictures at an Exhibition.
Oh, I like all of those.
I was going to say, you know all of those.
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Borodin,
If anyone's wondering, we are major band geeks.
Yeah.
So we know a lot of these. We've played a lot of these things.
Yeah. Borodin is known mostly for his symphonies, his tone poem In the Steppes of Central Asia, and his opera Prince Igor. And lastly, Rimsky-Korsakov wrote Scheherazade, the Capriccio Espagnole, the Russian Easter Festival Overture, and the opera The Tale of Tsar Saltan, which is mostly known for the interlude Flight of the Bumblebee. All of the 5 are buried in Tikhvin Cemetery in St. Petersburg.
Who's the one that wrote Peter and the Wolf?
Prokofiev.
Oh, see? I do like all those guys.
All right, ready for question 5?
Yep.
All right, so this is the one that I wanted to ask from the start. This is the one why I originally was going to write about 1988, but then didn't.
Okay.
Okay. Question 5, sports and games. In 1988, what tennis superstar nicknamed Fraulein Forehand, won all 4 major tournaments and an Olympic gold medal, becoming the only person, male or female, to ever achieve the so-called Golden Slam.
Where's she from?
I didn't say where she's from.
Ah, shit.
I said she's nicknamed Fraulein Forehand.
That's the information that I need. Okay, it's fine. Her name just escaped my mind. Hold on.
Fraulein Forehand won all 4 majors and an Olympic gold, becoming the only person to ever achieve the Golden Slam.
I just can't think of her name.
I really thought you would know this.
I think I do know this. I just can't think of her name. It's like something Russian-y also. 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I can't think of her name. It's like something like... No, not Sharapova. She's too young. Ilyovich or something. I can't think of her name.
You're not even close.
Fine. Hold on. I'll just guess something random. Steffi Graf.
You suck.
What is it really?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I was thinking if it wasn't this other one I was thinking of, I was just going to say Steffi Graf. So
yes.
Glad that worked out.
The critical clue there was Fraulein Forehand. Fraulein is German.
Well, I wasn't sure, and I had like a brief moment where I thought she was American, so then I was doubting myself.
No, Steffi Graf is German.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure, so then I got all nervous. Is she the one that was married or is married to?
She's married to
Andre
Agassi.
Okay,
yeah. I don't talk about that, but she is married to him.
Okay.
Okay.
Is he American?
Yes,
That's
think
why
so.
I was thinking.
I think he is.
That's why I got myself all confused. Okay.
All right. This is one of the most incredible feats in sports history, and the only way anyone could ever possibly surpass it would be to win the Super Slam, which is the Golden plus the Pro Tour's year-end championship. Graf actually did win the Virginia Slims Championship to close out 1987, so she's the only person ever to win all 6 tournaments consecutively, although not in the same calendar year.
Wow.
For trivia, it's worth knowing a bit about
woman or person?
Person.
Wow.
Ever. For trivia, it's worth knowing a bit about the 4 majors, so I'm going to talk a bit about the history of each one as I also walk you through the 19-year-old Graf's miraculous 1988.
Okay.
The first major each year is the Australian Open, which is played in late January in Melbourne, Australia. It was first played in 1905, making it the youngest major. A lot of big-name players in the first half of the 20th century rarely or never played in this tournament because of how long it took to get to Australia. And even into the 70s, some of the top players, most notably Bjorn Borg, still preferred to skip the AO.
Wow.
Nowadays, it's the largest sporting event in the Southern Hemisphere, and holds the record for the highest attendance at a Grand Slam event, with 753,667 people attending the 2018 tournament.
Whoa.
The AO was traditionally played on a grass court, but since 1988, it has been played on a composite hard court surface.
Was she the first year to play on this?
On the hard court, yes.
Okay.
And it probably helped her,
right,
because hard court is slower with more rebound than a grass court,
yep,
which allowed Graf more time to set up her devastating forehand. She defeated the legendary Chris Evert in the final in her last appearance at a major. Graf didn't even drop a set the entire damn tournament.
Wow, that's impressive.
The French Open comes next, in late May and early June. First played in 1891, it is held in Paris, and is the only major played on clay, which slows the ball down, making the French particularly difficult for players that rely on powerful serves. The most physically demanding of all tennis tournaments, Graf won in 1988, again without dropping a set. She obliterated the upstart Natasha Zvereva in the finals without even giving up a game.
Wow.
Afterward, she apologized to the crowd for the brevity of the match, which lasted just 32 minutes.
Talk about a humble brag.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wimbledon, officially known as the Championships, Wimbledon, the Championships, Wimbledon.
Okay.
That's what it's officially called. Takes place shortly after the French Open in early July. Played at the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club in London, it was first played in 1877, making it the oldest tennis tournament in the world, and, since the AO switched to hard court in 1988, the only major still played on grass. The royal family traditionally attends Wimbledon, and the traditional food of the tournament is strawberries and cream. In 88, Graf played Martina Navratilova in the finals.
That's who I was thinking of. Sorry.
Oh, Navratilova. That would have been a good guess, actually, yeah.
That's who I was thinking of. Not that I thought of it, but
right.
It didn't matter.
Well,
it worked in my favor.
Tripped and fell into the right answer.
I know. Navratilova, that's who I was thinking.
Yeah. Navratilova was 8-0 in finals played on Wimbledon's center court, and had won the tournament for the last 6 straight years. Graf dropped the first set, but stormed back to take the match.
Nice.
Played in late August and early September, the U.S. Open is the last major of the year. First played in 1881, the U.S. takes place in Flushing Meadows, Queens, New York, and was played on grass until 1974, then on clay from 75 to 77, and then on hard court since 78. The main court of the event is Arthur Ashe Stadium, named for the African-American tennis pro who won the first modern U.S. Open in 1968. With history on the line, Graf faced off against her friend and frequent doubles partner, Gabriela Sabatini, taking the final 2-1.
That also crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But then I was like, there's no way with that name that she's German, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sabatini got a rematch in the gold medal match in Seoul. Although these were the Summer Olympics, they took place between September and October. Tennis had been an Olympic sport from 1896 to 1924, then did not return until 88. The first year it was back in the games, Graf crushed Sabatini, won the gold, and achieved sports immortality.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have information about her?
What do you mean?
About her? Herself?
No, that was everything.
Oh.
I mean, I could tell you she's married to she's retired now. She's married to Andre Agassi. They have, I think, 2 kids.
Do you think Steffi stands for Stephanie?
It does.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
That was my question.
Okay. Very important.
I was just curious.
All right, so you have 3 correct answers so far, I think?
I think so, because I got Scheherazade.
Yep.
I got
Lloyd's.
And I got
Steffi. Question 6, science. On October 27th, 2088, which at the time of recording has not yet happened.
Just so that's clear for all you
for posterity, yes.
Podcast listeners in 70 years.
From the perspective of an observer on Earth, Mercury will pass directly in front of what much larger planet, whose lesser-known moons include Leda, Sinope, and the recently discovered Valetudo?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Jupiter.
Yes, it's Jupiter.
Yay!
Well, I'm going to lose this season.
Well, you won last season, so you can't complain.
No, I can.
Okay, fine, but I deserve a win.
I want to say up front that I got a lot of the information in this discussion from the Science Channel show The Planets and from a recent article from NPR.
You watched it?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'll tweet out a link to that article if I remember, which
was it good?
I almost certainly won't. Anyway.
The show?
Yeah.
It was good?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh.
Anyway, let's do this. Jupiter is, obviously, named for the king of the Roman gods, and it is the largest planet in our solar system. Like Saturn, Jupiter is a gas giant, though this is actually a bit of a misnomer. Planetary scientists refer to light elements like hydrogen and helium as gases, heavier compounds like water, methane, and ammonia as ices, and silicates and metals as rocks in their professional jargon. Jupiter and Saturn are made up of gases in this specific sense of the term, whereas Uranus and Neptune are made up of ices and are therefore called ice giants. Jupiter is about 90% hydrogen, with most of the rest of the mass being helium and a small percentage being heavier elements. But most of the hydrogen in Jupiter and Saturn is not actually in gaseous form. The outer atmosphere is made up of clouds, and there is thought to be a rocky core at the center of the planet, but most of Jupiter's mass is thought to be in a layer of metallic hydrogen. The pressure is so high that hydrogen atoms start to share electrons like a metal. But this also isn't a metal in the sense that we usually use the term. The temperature and pressure are so high that they exceed hydrogen's liquid vapor critical point, meaning that it exists as a supercritical fluid, a state of matter that has properties between a liquid and a gas. Please don't ask me what that means. I really do not understand it.
Okay. So they can't, land a rover there or anything?
No.
It's too gaseous.
Well, so the outer atmosphere is gaseous, and then most of it beneath the outer atmosphere is this supercritical fluid.
I see.
Which is partway between a liquid and a gas in its properties.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about Jupiter's moons. The main ones to know for trivia purposes are the Galilean moons, which, as their collective name suggests, were discovered by Galileo Galilei in 1610. All 4 of them are named for lovers of Zeus. Ganymede is the only one named for a male character, and it is the largest moon in the solar system. It's even larger than the planet Mercury.
Wow.
It's composed mostly of rock and water ice. Callisto is the next largest, is equal parts rocks and ices, and is one of the most heavily cratered bodies in the solar system. It is also considered to be the best location for a human base for exploring the Jupiter system, because it is farther away from the planet's intense radiation than its 3 siblings.
But didn't they once say that like Ganymede would be like a good site for life to form?
No.
Oh.
That's Europa. I'll get to that.
Oh, sorry.
Io is the 3rd largest, and it's covered in volcanoes. In fact, it's the most geologically active body in the entire solar system. The smallest of the Galilean moons, Europa, has fascinated me since I was just a little nerd reading books about astronomy when I finished my work early in elementary school.
Oh, little nerd.
Yeah, I was always like this. Its smooth surface is made of water ice, but it is thought that there is a liquid ocean underneath, making it one of the best candidates for where we might observe life elsewhere in the solar system.
Right.
Just this year, a team of astronomers at the Carnegie Institution for Science discovered 12 more small moons, bringing the total number of known satellites of Jupiter to a whopping 79.
Wow.
Valetudo is by far the weirdest and most interesting of this new crop, and here's why. Jupiter's moons divide pretty cleanly into 2 groups. One group, which orbit close to the planet, formed with Jupiter and orbit in prograde, meaning they move in the same direction as the planet's rotation. The other group are further out and were captured by Jupiter's enormous gravitational pull. They orbit in retrograde, the other direction.
Wait, what is the moon?
What?
Is the moon in prograde or retrograde?
Prograde.
Okay, yeah. I just didn't know that.
But tiny Valetudo, which is about 1 kilometer across, is way out with the second group, but orbits in prograde. The team that discovered it speculate that it may have been much larger in the past, but got pulverized from crashing into retrograde moons.
I was going to say, doesn't it just like hit the other one?
Producing many of the tiny satellites we see today.
That's cool.
So Valetudo might be responsible for a lot of the retrograde moons, because it's just getting battered running into them, and like chunks of moons are just flying off and becoming their own satellites.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
what is Valetudo?
What?
What is Valetudo, like the name?
Oh, where does it come from? Yeah, Valetudo was a minor Roman god. She was Jupiter's granddaughter.
Oh, okay. Goddess,
yes. So that's why Valetudo is interesting, because it may be responsible for a lot of the satellites we see around Jupiter now.
Cool.
Yep. All right, so that will do it. You're now up 9-2. Is that right? 7-2?
Yeah.
7-2.
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay.
I really need to do better next week than I did last week. Okay.
All right, I won't make it too hard.
All right. Well, anyway, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us. We're at quizandhers@gmail.com. We're also at quizandhers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave a review on iTunes. I don't know why podcasters say that, but they do, so I guess we should say that.
Yep.
Because it is good. I don't know.
Yep. Feedback is good.
Yeah, feedback is always good. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We're everywhere. And we will be back next week with another game.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
Bye. He loves to burp.